You're listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast.
Welcome to another great episode of The Whole Truth podcast. I'm Paul Armstrong. If you're an investor who's looking for exploration leverage, this interview with Alicanto Managing Director Rob Sennitt is really going to grab you. This isn't a story about a company that's going to start drilling in 3 or 6 months' time or is thinking about exploration. This is a company that has been flat out doing the hard yards behind the scenes to work up exploration targets at its Falun Copper-Gold Project in Sweden. It has now got a whole host of targets and the drill rig has started turning. The focus is on a 3.5 kilometre long corridor where a whole host of compelling targets have been identified. This corridor stretches from the world-famous Falun mine, which was a major producer of high-grade mineralisation for many years. It's been subjected to no modern exploration. Rob's done the hard yards and his team, they've identified these targets. They've got the drill rig turning, they're fully funded and they're in business. Rob explains why he thinks there's so much smoke and what they're doing to put the lie detector into some of these targets right now. Rob, you've done a lot of work on this project. It's been a big build-up to the start of the drilling campaign just underway now. After all this work, do you feel a bit like Santa Claus on Christmas Eve?
Oh, I hope so. Paul. It's you're absolutely right. It's been it's really been a labour of love over these last 6 months. You know, we sort of took the time. We put a lot of time into gravity surveys, EM work, and really doing the real backbone of the work, such that we can have all of the right targets and give this drilling campaign the ultimate chance of success, if you like.
From an investor's perspective, those sorts of things are pretty boring, aren't they? But they're absolute necessity. You've used those geophysical techniques and the like and the soil sampling to try and close in on your targets so that you can use your drilling most effectively. But it doesn't always excite the market, and the share price drifted off quite a bit, didn't it, while you were hard at work below the waterline?
Yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? You've got a limited budget. You've got to use your dollars carefully, and ultimately, when we start this drilling program, we've just got to give ourselves the best chance of success. And we've now built up a portfolio of targets which look fantastic. We've now invested with a drilling company. We went on quite a big tender process. We've now got I think is a great drilling company to work with us on all of this. And as I say, just getting it all lined up, getting the most prospective targets all ready to go, such that when we push the button, which we sort of did at the end of September, we've given ourselves, I hope, the best chance of success and, the best chance for shareholders to see some real reward for their money.
Now, the share price has been going up the last couple of weeks. I mean, it's up nearly 40% since you said drilling was about to start. You can see people can recognise there's an opportunity here. You have done all this relatively dry but important work behind the scenes for so long now, and you're about to go and put the lie detector into it in the drill rig, as they say. And the stock's gone up nearly 40% in what has been a pretty difficult market too, to say the least. So, some great outperformance at the junior end there. But what has this work that you've done delivered? What does it tell us? Does it tell an investor about the potential size of the prize?
Look, the interesting thing about the Falun project is that, for 1,000 years, it operated. It was the biggest producer in the copper producer in the Western world for hundreds of those years. And really that came out of one very small area, 100 by 200 by 500 metres deep, 28 million tonnes at 4% copper. We know that these deposits don't occur by themselves. We know they occur in clusters. We have, what I would say arguably the best guy in the world who has been wandering this landscape for over 30 years, driving the drill rig, and is more excited than I've ever seen him before. And, we've really got it to the point now where, when we put those first drill holes in the Whitgruven target, 3.5 kilometres away from Falun, had some great success there, got very excited about that, went and bought the old, the permit that has the old Falun mine on it. We've now got numerous gravity anomalies along that 3.5 kilometre trend that's never had a drill hole in it. And they're all teed up and they're ready to go. So as you call it, the lie detector test, for me, it really is. I've been sort of telling this story now for about the last 12 months, and it's a key time for us. It's we're all very bullish about the concept, but it's now time to go and do that drilling. And as I say, there's no lack of targets. If you talk to Eric, the whole Caldera, the whole 10-kilometre strike zone that we've got there at Falun is all highly prospective. But this area of interest that we've defined between Falun and the Wittgruven drilling 3.5 kilometres away is for us where we've focused our time, where we've pulled all of our high priority targets together. And yeah, absolutely, it's now time to hopefully make it count.
So you've got a 3.5 kilometre corridor of highly prospective targets that you've identified. There's smoke obviously everywhere. It's brownfields exploration, to say the least, right next to what was a world-class high-grade mine. I mean, in terms of the risk-reward scenario in exploration, this is pretty good, isn't it? I mean, the stock is still only 4.7 cents. You put a drill hole into one of these targets, and it shows that it's anything like what has been mined at Falun next door over the years. I mean, the sky's the limit, isn't it?
Well, it's interesting. Like when you go to these conferences and people say, and there's a whole lot of junior resource companies to look at. I sort of, to my mind, there are a number of things you look at. One's the assets that you've got, two are the management, three's the jurisdiction. You've got to be able to do things, but four's the leverage. And for me, when you look at where we are at 4 cents, you look at 28 million tonnes at 4% copper. What's that worth? And really, for us.
So what's the market cap at that price?
Oh, look at 5 cents, I think we're about $30 million Aussie.
So you're coming off a low base while drilling some very prospective targets.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the proposition, isn't it? In a nutshell.
It's exactly right. And and as I say, like, it's not just, as I say, these things occur in clusters, and we have numerous targets along that 3.5 kilometre trend, and even still, we're still doing more work to identify it. We've just done a gravity survey down to the south of Falun, and again, we're still identifying more targets. So. Yeah, there's certainly not a lack of places for us to put that drill rig, and with a bit of success, maybe you add drill rigs to that. I think it's all a question now of showing people that this is far more than just a concept. That this is something that's real.
So the rig's turning as we talk.
Yes. So we told people we'd start at the end of the September quarter, which is what we did. We did a big tender, and I think have got ourselves a very good contractor there. They've set up. We've now got drill rig on site and drilling, which is just fantastic. As I mentioned before, a lot of work went into identifying those targets. So, we're now drilling just to the west of Falun. We're close to on one of those gravity targets, but very close to what we some pretty interesting structures that came out of the due diligence we did when we bought the old Falun mine.
Rob, how many holes do you think you'll get out of this initial program? Do you have a finite set, or are you really going to just cut your cloth accordingly?
No, it's interesting. I've told the market that we'll drill a minimum of 5,000 metres, but that minimum is really just the deal that we did with the driller, like making sure that he's the right guy for us, and he's giving us, he's delivering on what he's promised on. But fundamentally, I don't see us stopping. The drill program will vary with every drill hole. If we have some success in one particular area, in most of those areas, we have the ability to drill numerous drill holes. So,
is there a seasonal issue about it? With winter coming up, will that slow you?
No, interestingly enough, there's one particular gravity there that we can only drill in winter. It's a question of the ground being hard enough. The farmer doesn't want us to sort of damage the field by bringing the drill rig in, so we're only allowed to drill there in winter. So, interestingly enough, from a guy from Australia, you just assume winter is just a terrible time, but in fact, actually, it just goes 24/7, 12 months of the year.
It's the same in Canada and North America, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
They boast about the upcoming winter drilling programs, which to us sort of suggest that, well, would you be drilling in winter? But of course, that's when the ground's frozen and is most accessible. Yeah. So you're going to continue to drill this, but obviously you want to be nimble. I mean, you've got a lot of targets there. You want to be able to adjust your game plan according to what you see. So that's why I suppose you want to say, look, we're not going to necessarily follow a complete plan from beginning to end. We want to be able to move around based on what we think is coming out of the ground.
Well, to be fair, I mean, the board and I discussed, what the drilling program looks like. But again, I think it's just a function of, what happens with that drill program. If this first target, we've sort of budgeted on one drill hole, but if we have some success there, there's every likelihood we drill more than one drill hole at that particular target. If we don't hit expectations with other targets where we've got two drill holes, we'll leave that at one drill hole. So it's very flexible from that perspective. And as I said, we're fortunate in that we've got more than enough targets to continue to focus in on.
Now, stepping back from the drilling program itself, Rob, the prize here is obviously if you were to make a discovery, I take it there's a whole European market desperate for what you would be mining.
Yeah, look, Sweden's and Europe is very interesting. The whole macro equation around Sweden just continues to get more interesting. I mean, you look at Europe; they use 25% of the world's commodities and produce 3%. So, they'll never get to self-sufficiency, but there's a lot of push in terms of moving away from the likes of Russia and other places where commodities have been sourced in the past. And so there's pressure on a number of the member states to lift their game in terms of what they produce. You look at Sweden for itself, for example, places like Norvolt, a new battery plant starting up. There's a greater demand for commodities within Europe, and certainly I've always described, the Swedes as very pragmatic people. You look at them change their energy policy as a result of energy security. You look at them talking about mining uranium again after sort of banning it sort of 40 years ago because, that's what the world's looking for in terms of renewables. So, certainly that macro equation around Europe has changed substantially. Which means that when I talk to politicians in Sweden, it's all about how can we get these things sort of up and running? No one's looking to cut any corners with respect of how you build a mine or operate, safely, effectively, and the like. But everybody does acknowledge that commodities are required in this green transition, and for Europe to be more self-sufficient is certainly a big push over there. And you've seen that with the Critical Minerals Act in terms of them looking to up their production locally.
Yeah, so Sweden's a subset here of the wider deglobalisation push. The desire in North America and in Europe to be more self-sufficient, as you say. But Sweden does have a long track record. It's very highly rated as a mining jurisdiction, isn't it? Yeah,
look, absolutely. It sort of sits in the top 20 on the Fraser Institute, and as I say, it's probably one of the top 2 mining economies in Europe. It's had a mining history that's gone over 1,000 years. You look at where we are in the Bergslagen region, you've got some very big mines there, the Boliden's Garpenberg mine, you've got Zinkgruvan owned by Lundin. You're in a part of the world that's been mining, since the Vikings.
Now, you don't just have Falun, you have the Sala project too. Now, you spoke quite a lot about that, over the past year or so. Obviously, Falun has come to the forefront given, the quality of these targets and what you're now drilling. But Sala's alive and well as an exploration prospect too, isn't it?
Oh, look, absolutely. We've spent a lot of time there. We put out an announcement on the 30th May announcing sort of 2 new discoveries down there. It seems pretty clear to me that the resource continues up there to the north, and the opportunity for finding repeat Sala structures, that high-grade silver. Remember, Sala produced 200 million ounces at 1,244 grams a tonne on average. It's a fantastic asset, and so absolutely that remains at the very forefront of our mind as well. But for the current time, we've got this drilling program going at Falun, and that's certainly something that we're going to be sort of pushing at the short term. But look, there's still incredible value in that Sala asset, and ultimately we'll be looking to realise that for our shareholders.
Now, you're well funded. You raised money recently, so there's not as though you need to go and rattle the tin just yet. You can still drill plenty of holes. So investors listening to us would sort of say, well, you've got the money, you've got the drill rig turning. We're really at the witching hour. This is where the leverage exposure and the opportunity is. You must be. Are you sleeping well?
Yeah, yes and no. Look, there's nothing like putting yourself in the game. And look, we've done the hard work. And as you said, we've now got the drillers on site, and, it's sort of for me, it's all about proof of concept now. Having spent the time with Eric and understanding what he's doing there, it's just a really exciting story. And I've spoken to a lot of people about it now, and there are a lot of people out there watching what we're doing, and you get nervous in a way, because it's as you say, it's proof of concept. It's and so nervous, but a good nervous.
Now, one of the people watching what you're doing, of course, is one Mr. Steve Parsons, who, for those who aren't quite familiar, Steve is the founding managing director of Bellevue Gold, and highly successful and highly regarded geologist, among other things. Steve's very fond of this project, isn't he? And he knows it inside out.
Yeah, and he's also put his money where his mouth is too. I mean, he's our third largest shareholder. But, it's interesting when you talk to people like Steve. Steve, when he started at Bellevue, he didn't have anything like the maps we've got, the intercepts that we've got, the encouragement that we've got. And I think his first, I don't know how many holes there were, but, didn't really amount to very much. Whereas you look at us and, again, the diagrams and things that we've been able to pull out of the due diligence we did on the Falun mine, the success we had at our first 2 holes at Whitgroove, and, it's almost, in Steve's mind, it's almost chalk and cheese in a way. And, often says to me, if I had this, when we first started at Bellevue, it would have been a very different story. And look at the success that Bellevue's become. So
they're preparing to pour their first gold bar in the next couple of months.
That's exactly right, and in a very short space of time, really, from that first drill hole to getting to that first gold pour. So that's been a fantastic story. And look, if Steve's right, if we sort of start further down the track than Bellevue, and in my mind, there's absolutely no reason that there aren't more Faluns existing there, and Sala continues to look really interesting as well. For company like this to have 2 assets like that with the leverage that they have, it's just a fantastic opportunity.
Now, you're based in Sydney. You've come across to Perth this week. You're obviously out wearing the shoe leather off, spreading the good news around to people. What's the sort of feedback you're getting from investors as you've been belting along the terrace? Yeah,
they're all watching. There's people are sort of hanging on, and again, it's just you don't often see an opportunity like this one. I mean, you've 2 assets that were world class. 2 assets that made Sweden a superpower back in the late 1600s. That we're trying to bring back to life. The story around them is quite something. So we've got the best guy in the world, as I've mentioned. And I don't think I overstate it when I say that's driving that drill rig, that's still walking the ground, that's still finding outcrops, that's still coming up with ideas in terms of how we sort of maximise what we do there. So I sort of almost look at it as a failing on my own behalf that we're sort of capped at less than 30 million, and we have this opportunity. I've got to wear out more shoe leather.
Well, ABBA came out of Sweden singing about money, 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 and in fact, I think they've probably made more money in Australia than just about anywhere else. Hopefully you can repeat their success as you walk out of Sweden on your next visit. You come back here with the evidence that what you've got is the real deal. Yeah. The leverage, as we say, is absolutely enormous. It could be a huge success for investors. So good luck, and we're going to get you back on the Whole Truth podcast over the next few months to see how things unfold. All the best, Rob, and thanks for your time.
Thanks for that, and I certainly won't be wearing those ABBA tight pants when I come back in.
I'm very glad to hear
it. You've been listening to The Whole Truth, a Resources Rising Stars podcast, produced by Resource Media, hosted by Paul Armstrong for Reed Corporate. Please note that Reed Corporate does not provide investment advice, and investors should seek personalised advice before making any investment decisions.